You ever look at a website and wonder how it goes from just, plain text and links to something beautiful and interactive? Well, it's not magic. It's a language called CSS, and it's basically a toolkit for digital design. So today, we're going to open up that toolkit and add some essential tools, one by one.
So here's what we're putting in our toolkit today. First, we'll build smarter, cleaner navigation menus. Then, we'll get into the super important topic of designing for accessibility. After that, we're going to have some fun, creating depth with shadows, softening up our designs, and finally, unlocking a mind-boggling number of colors.
All right, first up, let's tackle a problem every web designer runs into. You've got a ton of pages, a ton of links, but not a lot of space. How do you fit it all in without making a huge mess? So, how do they do it? You've seen this a million times, right? You hover over a single menu item and poof, a whole list of options appears. It's a drop-down menu, and it's just a brilliant way to save space. The technique behind it, it's actually wonderfully simple. The whole trick, and this is the cool part, it all boils down to just one single CSS property, the display property. Think of it like a light switch for anything on your page. You can set it to block or inline to make sure it's visible, or you can flip the switch to none and it just disappears, gone.
Okay, so this is where the magic starts. Check out this line of code. We're telling the browser to find that list of links inside our navigation, and then we set its display property to none. And just like that, the menu is hidden. It's still in the code, but for the user, it's completely invisible.
So, how do we flip that light switch back on? We use this really cool thing in CSS called a pseudo class, in this case, hover. This rule is basically saying, hey browser, when the user's mouse is hovering over the main navigation area, go find that hidden list and switch its display to block. And there it is. The menu appears. So simple, so clean, and so incredibly useful.
Okay, let's grab the next tool from our kit. And this one is super important. It's all about making the web work for everyone. Accessibility isn't just a nice-to-have feature, it's our job as creators. And CSS gives us a really powerful way to put our users in the driver's seat. It's all thanks to something called a user style sheet. Think of it like a special CSS file that a user creates for themselves, and they can tell their browser to apply it to every single website they go to. This is an absolute game changer for anyone who needs, say, larger fonts or different colors to be able to read things comfortably. Now, how a user actually does this depends on their browser, of course, but the basic idea is always the same. They just dig into their browser settings, find the accessibility options, and point it to their own personal CSS file. From then on, the browser applies those styles everywhere. But here's the catch, and this is where we as designers really need to pay attention. If we code our font sizes using absolute units, like points, we just steamroll right over the user's personal settings. Not cool. Instead, we should be using relative units, like M. An M unit scales everything based on the user's preferred font size, which means we respect their choice. And this simple line of code shows you exactly how to do it right. If a user needs their default font size to be, say, 20 points, this rule doesn't fight them. It just says, okay, cool, we'll make this text 75% of whatever size you need it to be. It's such a small change in the code, but it makes a massive difference for your users. All right, time for some visual flair. A flat design can look great, but sometimes you really want things to feel like they're lifting right off the page. Let's talk about adding a sense of dimension with shadows. The text shadow property is actually way simpler than it looks. It just takes 4 values, one after the other. First, the horizontal position. Here, it's -4 pixels, so it moves the shadow to the left. Then, the vertical position, +4 pixels, so it moves down. The third value is the blur. How soft do you want the edges? And last, you just pick the color. That's it. And guess what? The box shadow works pretty much the exact same way, but it's for entire boxes or elements instead of just text. This comparison is perfect. On the left, you see positive values, which push the shadow right and down. On the right, we use negative values, and that pulls the shadow up and to the left. You get total control over where that shadow lands. You know, the digital world can feel a little boxy, right? All sharp corners. Our next tool is all about softening those edges to get a friendlier, more modern, more approachable feel. It's a property called border radius, and yeah, it does exactly what it sounds like. It takes those sharp, 90-degree corners on any element and just rounds them off. It's super flexible too. And this slide just makes it crystal clear, doesn't it? The top box has a border radius of 15 pixels, which gives it a nice, subtle curve. But the bottom one is cranked up to 50 pixels, and you get this really soft, pill-like shape.
It's such a simple way to control the whole vibe of your design.
Okay, for our final tool, we're diving into what is, for a lot of people, the most fun part of design: color. We're going to go way beyond simple color names and unlock a massive palette of options that even includes transparency.
So in CSS, you've got a few ways to handle color. You can use simple names like aqua, which is easy but pretty limited. You can use hex codes, which gives you a lot more choice. But where the real power is with RGBA. RGB, that's red, green, blue, and alpha. Now, red, green, and blue are probably what you expect. You mix them together to get your color. But that A for alpha, that's the secret sauce. It controls the opacity. A value of 1.0 is totally solid, and a value of 0.0 is completely see-through. You can get all sorts of cool, layered, glassy effects with it. So just how many colors are we really talking about here? Well, if you do the math, 256 options for red, times 256 for green, times 256 for blue, you get this number. Over 16.7 million distinct colors. And that's not even counting all the different levels of transparency you can add with that alpha channel. The possibilities are, literally endless.
So there you have it, 5 incredibly powerful tools for your CSS toolkit. We've got smart menus, accessible designs, shadows for depth, rounded corners for feel, and a universe of color. These really are the fundamental building blocks of modern web design. So the only question left is, what are you going to create with them?